Chris Schmitt, it's great to see you. Welcome to Paper Napkin Wisdom. I'm thrilled that you're with us today.
Thanks for inviting me. This is great to hang out with you this morning.
Yeah, it really is a real treat. So, Chris, you shared a beautiful paper napkin, and I won't do it justice. So if you're listening, pop up the paper napkin either on the website or on the blog itself, or even on Spotify. So at the top of the napkin, well, at the center of the napkin is a beautiful azimuth compass, and at the top it says "Know your azimuth." Um, and let's start there. Why did you share this with me?
I truly believe that knowing your azimuth, knowing yourself, knowing your best self, and being able to stay true to that, to find that true north and 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 be unapologetic about it is a key piece of being successful. I mean, honestly, the compass rose and even the logo itself, uh, I had my daughter do it because she has the artistic skills, not me. And if I would try to do it, I could do it, but it wouldn't be great. But she has those skills. So empowering her to be her best, and all of us look at where we fall on the map and figure out from that position, how do we contribute the most by being our best and not trying to be somebody we're not?
That's very cool. So, okay, for people who are not familiar, I could define azimuth, but
Yeah.
I think it would be better coming from you. What is an azimuth?
And an azimuth is a direction on a map, a direction on a compass, or a direction on a map for you. But if if I pull out my compass and I want to go over there, and I pull my compass out and it's a 22-degree heading, that heading is an azimuth. And I love the idea of azimuth because it's a shout back to my past, and my future at the same time. Uh, for my own personal background, I played Army for 30 years, and got to do some really cool stuff in my Army experience. And and the conversation around azimuth was even more in depth. Uh, my my commanders would come to me and say, "Hey, sir, can I get an asthma check on you with this? Can I get your vision? Can I understand what direction we're heading?" And and to be able to use the idea of an azimuth and a vision in corporate America now, and to be able to encourage my clients to, hey, not only know your azimuth, but stay true to your azimuth, and to get to that epic objective, it's going to take it's going to take some work. It's going to take some incremental progression. You might not know 100% exactly how to get there, but if you know where you are on the map right now, and you can shoot an azimuth to where you want to go, and you can have a conversation with the team and say, hey, where have we been and what have we learned? How can we use that stuff of where we've been, where we've learned, to not only gain their input but gain their buy-in, so that when there's difficulties, when there's obstacles, when there's a cliff, when there's an absolutely impossible bulletproof ice and we didn't bring our crampons, how do we still get to the top? Well, if we have that buy-in and we've brought a bunch of knowledge from where we've been, the leader doesn't have to just be out front and say, follow me. The rest of the team is involved as well. And I think that's the key of leadership of 2024, is that a strong leader is confident enough to know, I'm not great at drawing that logo in the middle of the napkin. Hey, Alexandra, would you be willing to help me out here? And now I've got something that's super cool, that meets your needs, that really speaks well of us. All that wrapped together is good stuff.
Yeah, and there's so much there. So let's dissect some of it. Let's start
Go.
playing Army. Like I love how you sort of like sweep this under. Uh, you didn't just play Army. You were Special Operations Forces liaison uh, command with the top U.S. military liaison with Canadian military in Ottawa. That's where we met initially, and wrapped up in all of that, I one of the things that I remember we spoke a lot about back in those days was the commitment to mission that exists within the military, right? I mean, there's a recommitment to mission that occurs on such a regular basis, and you talk about it, the azimuth, but it's a realigning. This is where we are. Here's where we are on the map. What's changed? What's new? Let's realign. And that you spoke about it almost casually, as it's like, yeah, this is what I would regularly do this. But that's something that happens in the military, and in your experience, not something that happens outside of the military as diligently, as regularly, as faithfully as it does there. Am I right in observing that? That's one of the things I always observe from the stories you used to tell.
I think it's really, I'm just going to use the word fun because I'm actually find this space fun. It's fun for me to be able to work with my clients, whether it's my clients at Uber or Redfin or Starbucks or Google, and be able to pull out a piece of military methodology and say, all right, as the leader, to be able to provide that vision, that guidance, that azimuth. In the military, we use a thing called commander's intent. And commander's intent is purpose and end state. And in the middle of that purpose and end state is some method stuff. But if you can, as a leader, you can reach to your team and say, hey, what have we learned? Where have we been? What can we bring in as the method? And the team then owns the end state because they've come up with the course of action, and you can move together and get it accomplished. To be able to bring some of that Army stuff, some of that, it's magical to be now coaching for 8 years and have azimuth be a thing, a real thing out there that I can use some of those best practices, some of those tools from the military, and bring them forward into corporate leadership and have it stick and have it be really useful. That's, well, it just makes it all feel like my past was useful. And I got to do some great stuff in my past. And my present is really cool. I get to help people. I can be part of a decision making process with some of my leaders as they're bouncing ideas off of me just as a sounding board that then turns into real life stuff in the marketplace, or a service that didn't occur before, or something that becomes truly iconic to the US, Canada, North America, the world. And that really feels purposeful. And as a 30-year Army veteran who spent 18 years as a Green Beret, it's cool to be able to say my current life is just as much fun as my past one was.
Yeah, it's really cool. Let's talk about, you say in the military there are words like commander, right? Commander means something. The terminology itself has some sort of forceful implications around the word, right? But it's interesting at the same time, you juxtapose that against this teaching that you're doing around what have we learned, where have we been. It's you're engaging the team as a leader to participate in the outcomes of solutions. And even when you talk about the commander's intent, it's the commander's job to provide that vision, right? The purpose and the end state, but not the how, not the where are we, not what do we do next. It's really about, engaging the leaders that are part of the team and uh, and asking them to solve the problem, right? As opposed to forcefully solving or telling them this is the solution. We're going there. Let's go. Right. I mean, those days are gone, even in the military. Right. Am I right?
Totally doesn't work that way. It is funny when I started doing this corporate leadership stuff, and I got asked the question, well, what do you know about leadership? And I kind of chuckle and I said, well, you were high end in the military, guys just do what you tell them to do. And obviously you haven't been on a Green Beret team room because A teams just don't work that way. And then if you have a group of A teams in a company or even in a task force, yeah, it just doesn't work that way. I mean, you need their buy-in if they're doing things that are incredibly dangerous. You need their buy-in and command, and I love the word command. Command is an honor. Command is a responsibility. Command, there's an expectation of not knowing everything. In fact, the best commanders will go to their special forces team rooms and ask that commo sergeant, hey, could you give me a quick class on how to use this new radio? Or talk to that weapon sergeant and go, wow, I haven't seen that sight. How does it work? Like, to be able to continually be in a position where as a leader, you can ask questions, you can be curious, you can, honestly, you don't need to know everything. In fact, the guy that thinks that he knows everything or tries to know everything, or, fake it till you make it, well, that's bullshit. Like, you,
Totally.
as a good commander, no one expects you to know everything. In today's world, in the information age that we are, you're leading a high performance team at Uber. There's no way that you can know all of the information because there's so much information coming at you. You have to be able to pause and be able to ask curious questions. You have to pause and you have to say, wow, how does that work? And when you do that and you ask one of the people on your team, or even a level down or 2 levels down, how about like 4 levels down, and ask them how it works, you honor them and their experience. And honestly, going back to knowing your azimuth, you're honoring that person's azimuth because that might be something that they're super passionate about. And how cool that the big boss is willing to ask them how it works.
Yeah, and I think that most people, from the outside looking in, watch the movies, watch the whatever about the military, and it's Jack Nicholson screaming into the camera saying, you can't
Don't
handle
know
the
the
truth,
truth.
right? Like it's there are stereotypes, and that's not the way it plays out. And I think that's really surprising for
Well,
a
it
lot of
can't
people.
play out that way because you're dealing with people,
Yeah.
and you're dealing with, in many cases, some of the smartest, most creative, uh, you know, uh, improvisational people on the planet. And so if you're just screaming at them or you're telling them exactly where to go, there's no room for creativity. There's no ability to encourage, in the case of my experience, encourage Colonel Mary and Chad to do things that are incredibly dangerous to himself and his troops. But he knows that that's why we've been working together, And honestly, uh, Al, attacking Al Qaeda in northern Mali is something that's in not only his country's best interest, but in the best interest of those U.S. or Canadian bubbas that were working with him. Um, and the relationship that you've created encourages him to be in that space, and that is the magic, and that magic translates whether it's in a corporate boardroom, or we take folks out on a 4-day 3-night mountain excursion or expedition called the Traverse, and and the team looks up at the mountain and goes, I don't know how we do that. And now we open the opportunity for perspective, and the team is talking through how we go there and what we do, and they look at it and they solve the problem and they start moving that way, and then they notice, okay, that was an okay plan, but what we've learned up to now, maybe we need to go a little bit more left. And and we can apply those lessons on the move, because if you need all the information, you're probably not going to get there.
Yeah, and I think that that speaks to the other part. On the left-hand side of the napkin, left of the compass, is incremental progression. And I think this is really huge in terms of what you're talking about. No mission is won with a magic wand, right? I think it's not just all of a sudden done. It's incremental progression towards the goal, towards the end state that is well defined an alignment with the purpose, and we get there together. So let's talk about what are the systems that you use, or that you've translated from your military experience into the leadership experience within corporate America, that allow for that reassessment. How does that look? What does the incremental progression look like? What are the tools that you use to ensure that that's part of every day?
It's really just as simple as putting one foot in front of the other. And it is just as simple as saying, hey, what are those things that, if as we shoot our azimuth, what are those things, what are those immediate objectives that we can get to, and know that we can get there, and there's alignment among the team to get there, and then we adjust and we move forward. On the Traverse, there's a spot that you look out over from Horse Mountain to connect to Jefferson Mountain, and wow, like when you look at it from Horse, you're like, that doesn't go. Like, there's a cliff there, up there, there's no way to get there. But when you looked on Google Earth, it looks like there's a goat track that kind of goes between the two, and you look on the map and it just kind of seems like it should go. But if you stand there and go, yeah, we can't, that won't, I can't see how that possibly works. And you don't put one foot in front of the other and just go and see, well, you're never going to be able to get there. That is a great way to think about that. Those big bet, those high payoff things that, if you don't get quickly to market, and now with AI, if you don't get quicklier to market, you're not going to make money. So you
Yeah,
got to be fast.
yeah, and so let's dial it back, because we've talked about the Traverse a couple of times. The Traverse is this leadership experience that you bring teams on, and explain it for people listening, because it's fascinating, and I know you've been doing this for years. It's an amazing thing.
Well, it starts with an idea that it's a the one in September that we're going to do is 4 days and 3 nights, and there's 4-person teams with a special forces advisor. I have a crew of guys that I worked with that might be retired Green Berets or SEALs or Rangers, and they help guide, and ultimately they're there to make sure that no one does anything ridiculous and gets himself caught, and concurrently I have a logistics team that's moving off in the background, so that when we get to our objective at the end of the day, they have tents set up and we're eating steak and salmon over the campfire. The bottom line is it's meant to be hard, and it's meant to be a little bit of type 2 fun. And it's meant to be uncomfortable, but I truly believe that big payoff doesn't happen if you're always comfortable. And great things and great opportunities don't happen at 72 degrees all the time. Maybe for the first time, but it's a safe environment to be able to really have an opportunity to push your limits, and in that experience learn about yourself. You're going to get a chance to lead, learn about your ability to lead. You're going to get a chance to really bond tightly with the group that you have on your team. And as we move through the mountains, whether it was here in the Cascades, in September we'll be in Montana again, you just to be in this magical mountain environment that it's funny. I've had clients ask me, okay, so you're going to sneak into our tent at night and put a little red line across our necks with a Sharpie, and I'm like, nah, there's no reindeer games. The mountain is going to take care of all that for you. The weather is going to provide enough hardship, but it all becomes analogous to our own personal journeys and how far we want to go. If you want that epic objective, first of all, you're never going to get it without just putting one foot in front of the other. But if you want that epic objective, you got to know your azimuth. You got to know where you are on the map. You got to be able to, figure out a way to get your team to be able to provide whatever knowledge they have, because you're going to get to a creek in Valhalla, and no matter what plan you have on the Montana Traverse, it's probably wrong, because the answer is pretty clear when you get there. But you have to, as you plan and put it on your map, you're going to have a certain plan that you're going to have to adjust to. And that adaptability we'll discuss at that creek. And if you don't pick up on it, we're having this conversation about adaptability, and then you're going to look up at the next mountain and go, oh, I get it. We're talking about adaptability because we got to adapt our plan now. And that geolocation, that'll probably stick with you for the rest of your life. Like that feeling in that spot of, while you're getting water resupply and you're giving your feet a little rest, and realizing that what you had for a plan right now is wrong, and together you guys need to figure out how you solve the next problem.
There's two really big things that came out of that. I mean, one is you talk about it over and over again, and it's on the napkin, epic objective. I think it's important also in leadership, and you talk about this commander's intent of a purpose and an end state, but that purpose and end state's got to be epic. It's got to be challenging. It's got to be uncomfortable to consider. It's got to be uncomfortable,
right? Yeah. If you're sitting at 72 degrees all the time, it's not going to feel as fulfilling as if you're up on that mountaintop. One of the exercises that I work through with my clients is this idea of best self. And we'll work to be able to gain awareness. I use a number of tools. My favorite tool is the Berkman method. But the key there of whatever tool of self-awareness that we use is to pull out, hey, these are my strengths. And when I'm being my best, I'm doing X. And actually X is a verb. So I'm doing a verb. So I'm inspiring, I'm collaborating, I'm designing. What I want are each of my clients to come up with, what is that verb that they do when they're their best. So the next time that they're doing it, they get this little feeling of dopamine because they recognize that's what I do when I'm my best. And if you can create a neuroscience hack for the thing that you do best, well, what does dopamine want more than anything else? Govin, what does it want? It wants more of it.
More.
It,
Yeah.
it
Repeat.
just wants more
Give
of
it
it.
more. Yeah.
The brain wants more. So what the brain will start doing is creating a neural pathway to be able to replicate that thing. So
Yeah.
suddenly that thing that you already do when you're your best, you actually build some muscle memory, in this case, in your brain that allows you to, that's what that 10,000 hour thing is. Like, how do you become an expert? You put 10,000 hours shooting the puck, you get playing chess, whatever it is that, you put 10,000 or 100,000 or 1,000,000 hours into something. What you're doing is you're creating a mental pathway, you're creating muscle memory on that thing. Well, if you can start doing that with what you do when you're your best, and you recognize that, hey, this is what I do when I'm my best, well, then some pretty extraordinary. That's when you summit epic objectives.
Yeah.
Because
And so that's the value of the epic objective. And then there's another thing that I think is really, and again, I still think it's really amazing that, all these very advanced leadership concepts came through experience that you learned in the military, and then
right.
you translate this over. But at the end of this all is this concept that if we do this, we can do more than we think we can. And I think so. One of the things I always wonder about is why is it that people go from the military? I mean, there's this um, idea that if you've done well in the military, you're going to do real well in business, right? There's this idea, and maybe it's just my idea, maybe it's just what I think, but I think that people who've done really well in the military do really well in business, and the reason why they do really well in business, whether they do really well outside of the military, is because they're really great at execution. They're really great at this idea of knowing your azimuth, adjusting, learning, engaging everybody else around them to accelerate their learning and execution. But like everybody, it's that Mike Tyson quote, right? Everybody's got a strategy until you get punched in the face.
Right.
And I think when you're hardened with that 10,000 hours of execution practice in the military, and you can translate that everywhere else, you can take that with you. Am I wrong?
Well, I don't think that there's some mutual exclusivity here. But if you're good um, at, in my case, if you're good at being a special operator, if you're good at being a Green Beret, one of the things that made you good is that ability to learn, that ability to have perspective and to back off a second and gain insight from multiple different places. It's not, hey, I know what I do when I'm my best, but if I want the napkin to look like this, I need to reach out to my teammates, in this case, my daughter, who's spending the summer here between her junior and college year, she's gonna draw the logo because she's the one who created it in the first place. But she's got that skill, and I need to be not judgmental that I can't draw it. But that's the idea. Is I think that if you want to be a great leader, if you want to be successful in business, you want to be successful at anything, you have to kind of go back to what we started off with. You got to know where you are on the map. You got to know what your best self is. You got to know your azimuth. And from that point, you can't just shoot the azimuth and go that way. It's important to be able to gain buy-in from your team, and be able to reach back and say, hey, what have we learned? Where are we at? What do you know? What's your best? And then make sure that we cooperate, collaborate. We're communicating in a real, fantastic kind of way. the key there is that hopefully your military experience, through the difficulty of that experience, you've ingrained that process in a way that you can be confident enough about your own abilities that you can ask Govind for a hand. You can ask Alexandra and say, hey, please draw this for me. And not feel like you're imposing on them, but actually you're empowering them for an opportunity to do something that one more time makes them their best self.
Yeah, and if you know that, again, I think this brings us back to this idea that command leadership is an honor and a responsibility.
Yes.
And if you,
And it's not the opposite. It's not like someone put a crown on your head and now we're going to bow in front of you. That's bullshit.
yeah,
The first thing that comes to mind of command, or in, CEO-ness, is, hey, this is an opportunity for you to allow others to be their best. And this is an opportunity that collectively you all can summit epic objectives, and you can do way more than you possibly think you can.
it's pretty cool. Like, just let's rewind that sentence for a second, because I think everybody really needs to hear this. I think a lot of people think that CEOs are anointed and the title might be bestowed, but the command, the leadership opportunity comes from this idea that you're talking about. This honor and responsibility to allow, to encourage, to empower everyone around them to be their best. Right?
That's the magic.
That's magic.
That's the magic. And whether that comes from time in the Peace Corps doing something hard, or time in the military, or really just from, working your way up, starting as the janitor of the company to the CEO, like that ability to see leadership or command as an opportunity to make others their best, and to find the space and the permission not to know everything, but to ask others, and then incrementally progress on that information, and in an unwavering kind of way, go out there on that really rocky, scary, breezy traverse and be able to learn on the move. Because if you think, if you have to know everything before you go there, well, you're just not going to go that way, and you're going to miss the opportunity.
That's awesome. Chris, I know that we could do this for hours, because we have in the past, but love the fact that you were here. Love that we've relaunched Paper Napkin Wisdom together here. Thank you for joining me on that.
Thanks for the opportunity, Govind. I think that's really, really neat that as you came to kind of a new milestone, that you reach back, and the Seattle, the Ottawa connection can be to be in place. I really find that our time in Canada was really instrumental in my growth, because it was the first time working in Canadian Special Operations Command that I didn't own the responsibility. I didn't own the task, but was in a space of being a mentor, friend, asset. And that's the space that I'm in now as an executive coach and consultant, leadership advisor, is that it gave me a chance to start exercising that muscle. And our conversations were instrumental in where I'm at right now.
It's been fun to watch you do all the stuff that you're doing. And I always, it was a very special time when you were here. And special thanks to Alexandra for that napkin. I'm definitely going to ask you to come back on again, Chris. Thanks for doing this.
Right on. Thanks.